So the other day we had talked about GameStop and how they were struggling pretty badly and how managers and employees at GameStop were starting to come to the realization that more stores, a significant amount of stores, appear to be getting liquidated and shut down, basically trying to keep costs down as GameStop is trying to get, at least right now, to what they see as like the next big boom for them in terms of revenue and foot traffic and all this with the next systems at the end of this year. But we still don't really know much information about the PlayStation 5. Don't even know what it looks like right now, and launch titles are still up in the air. So GameStop hoping right now that platforms that are currently trending heavily towards the digital side, which cuts GameStop out completely, seems like a poor strategy. So we, of course, talked about that and how we didn't think there'd be much they could do, especially with their core concept for a store that they had, which was around having parties in their retail store. Seems like a bad idea overall, but there was a write-up yesterday by IGN, and it details several concept stores that GameStop is currently testing, and one of them I think could actually work. Now, I don't know if it would bring them the profits and the revenue that they saw during the Xbox 360 and PS3 days, specifically like the early. I would say from like 2007 to like 2010, that was the heyday for GameStop. They were so busy then. They had so much revenue pouring in. We weren't quite to that digital side yet, and everything was being bought in stores, and you had some big releases. Remember, that's when Call of Duty really took off, with Modern Warfare, of course, coming out, and then Modern Warfare 2, and we started seeing things like Black Ops show up, and then Halo 3. Halo was massive still. There was still a lot of stuff then, so I don't know if GameStop will ever get back to that point, but I think if they become sustainable and not losing tons of money to where they have to continuously say, we're shutting stores down, that is at least an improvement for them. So what concept stores are they trying out, and which one do I think will work? Because I have experience with specifically two of these. All right, two. And I'll go over all of those. If you enjoy the video, guys, though, hit that like button, help out, and we'll go ahead and jump right over here to IGN's page. I'll leave the link down below if you want to read more about this as we go through it. Now, 4 concept stores that GameStop is testing, and I need to know if you are in the area and can check out one of these stores. Specifically, I want you to check out the Retro store that they are currently testing. And if you do, put some images or something up on Twitter so we can get a look at this, because there are some issues when it comes to a corporation trying to run a retro store, which I will go over here. But I'm curious at least what it looks like and how it is running right now. But the 4 concept stores GameStop is testing includes GameStop 2.0, which is the foundational new GameStop 2.0 store concept, which drastically cleans up the traditional GameStop layout and adds new community spaces. So when you go into GameStop now, it's pretty cluttered. It's hard to get around. I remember when I worked at GameStop, that it was tough to navigate that if you were, say, in like a wheelchair or any of that. It was very tough to get around those areas because you were like literally turning sideways and like kind of sidling around and trying to get through by squeezing past people. Forget about it during like Christmas when there was a line wrapping around those standees and like the big bins with the bargain games. It just didn't work. So the idea of cleaning some of that space up would be very helpful. And I think just overall make an improvement to the store and just feeling in the store. Now they do this is talked about more about having couch co-op gaming on large TVs and tabletop gaming. My issue with that is GameStop continues to cut down staff hours from what I've heard and seen, and I experienced this forever ago. But you can't really have one person run the retail side and that same person run the social side, as they call it, where you have a whole station with people. It just doesn't work because they could be focused on people in the back trying to get them set up with a game and controller and profile, and then maybe some controllers walks off at the front and they don't know about it. Then, they get in trouble for theft. That doesn't seem very fair to them. So if you do that, you'd pretty much have to have 2 people on at all times, even in like the morning, just in case someone comes in and wants to have a morning session playing Fortnite or something. Now, GameStop Social seems to just be that. It seems to literally just be like a gaming cafe for the most part. This is where they are seemingly focused heavily on that. They say 36 gaming bays where visitors can sit down to play games together, PC, Xbox One, PS4, Switch, all of that. And it's designed for parties. All right, parties did make us pretty good money back then, so I understand that. A lot of times, parties will bring in hundreds of dollars and then some on top of that if, say, people there want to buy presents for them. This happened a couple of times. This sounds crazy to you right now, but last minute, in people who were invited, like last minute, or who were last minute gift buyers would show up like an hour before the party and just look around for a gift to get them at that store that they're having the party at. I'm not even kidding. It happens so many times. Or when they're having the party and they look around, they might just buy stuff. It happened, right? So parties at least make money, and you can generally guarantee that you will make a couple $100 in like an hour or two. So it was nice to have that to look forward to from a store perspective, that you have kind of that guaranteed money there. I'm going to skip over the retro section. That's the big one. We're going to come back to that. But GameStop Pop seems to just be, as they say, designed for hardcore collectors in mind. They still have the games, still have the co-op gaming, but the shelves they're going to fill mostly with collectibles, apparel, and accessories. Well, I don't really know how well that... I feel like the audience for those things is pretty... Like, I feel like it's more niche than anything. I understand a lot of people will buy these kind of things, but a lot of times they'll buy it online, and I don't know how many seek out, or an overwhelming amount of people, I should say, seek out stores just for like a statue that's come out recently. I'm sure people do, but I don't think it's enough to like keep a corporation in business. That's why it was always lumped in with games and stuff in GameStop as they worked towards that side. But GameStop Retro, it's a new store concept built on the foundation of GameStop 2.0. GameStop Retro is specifically designed to collect the best library of pre-owned games from the Tulsa area. So there you go. If you're in the Tulsa area, I am curious if you've heard of GameStop Retro and if you can go check it out, because I am very interested to see how this is set up, and I'm really interested to see how the trade-in program works, that's the biggest thing here. Displays of the best modern games are supported by hundreds of classic games and consoles, as well as 4 gaming bays that feature CRT televisions and a wide variety of old-school gaming consoles. What this sounds like to me right here, it sounds like FuncoLand. Now, if you're familiar with FuncoLand, it was an old school type of store. If you look up images of it now, it looks very, very old school. It looks super 90s, but it was really cool. They did have CRTs in there. You could try games out before you buy, like Super Nintendo cartridges, for example, and it was a really cool place to go. It was a lot of fun, but the idea here is that they will be collecting retro games through trade-ins. Right now, they already do that in stores, but they have to send them away, and that's the biggest thing. They take the games in, they send them away, and they are essentially verified at a warehouse or a trade facility, and that makes it a little more, I guess, it makes it easier for GameStop to make sure they're not taking in anything that is essentially junk or counterfeit even. And that is an issue that we've seen with Super Nintendo games. Myself personally, when we would run a couple of stores, there were several stores that were retro oriented, so we would take in retro games consistently. And I will admit, we would actually make decent money on retro games. You would take them in for trade-in, the person would get something else, and then of course you would mark up the traded-in game and sell it at a decent value. Retro games are still pretty popular now. People go out looking for them, and what I see here right now is GameStop trying their hardest to figure out how to get foot traffic. That's what I'm seeing here. GameStop Social is all about trying to get foot traffic into their store, giving people a reason to come out to their store, but what they turn into is a gaming cafe. And I'm going to tell you now, and they'll figure this out, because what this means for these concept stores is they're trying to figure out what converts the foot traffic the best. I don't see GameStop Social converting the foot traffic as well as something like just straight retail through a combination of retro games and new games. A lot of times, a new release would come out. We would get some of them, not a ton, because you don't make a lot of money on them. The whole idea of buying new games, which I'll tell you right now what a margin was for a new game. I remember specifically Gears of War 4 came out, and generally Microsoft was one of the best when it would come to making money on new games. You don't really make a lot, but I remember theirs was, I think, $50.50. So it was $50.50 for us to buy it. There's some shipping thrown in, so we would buy accessories on top of that to kind of split the shipping cost up, because you want to fill a box up. If they send you a box with just like 4 games in it, that's a waste, because it's going to cost like $1.20 for each one to be shipped, basically. It comes out to like $5 for shipping. So you just you fill up a box, you pay $10 for shipping instead, but you get tons of N64 controllers, GameCube controllers, all this stuff, so that when you end up dividing up the shipping cost, it ends up being like 15 to 20 cents per new game. 50.5 was very, very good. If you go over to like Nintendo, it was the most expensive. Nintendo, it would come down to us spending $53 to $54 for like Mario Maker, for example. That's when I remember ordering or on the Wii U, and it was really annoying because it was expensive. So you can kind of see where we're getting into issues here with these new games, whereas we would get the new game in, and then someone would bring in like a whole shelf of N64 games just to get like MLB The Show or just to get Gears of War. It happened a lot, like more than you would think, because they would find these, they don't really have a lot of value in it, but, oh, well, I want the new Gears of War, I want the new Mario Maker, let's make a deal here. And it worked pretty much every time. So I think if GameStop can figure out how to do the trades in store without having to have them sent off for verification, and they can find managers they can trust, and that's going to be tough for GameStop, to check, to know the values, and to understand what they need to get to put in their glass, then they might have something here with GameStop Retro. But this was the biggest thing. You have to be able to alter prices for trade-ins at the counter. And you can't do that from what I've seen in GameStop. They scan it into the system. If it's in the system, it comes up with a price for trade-in, and that's it. Whereas 90% of the time, there was some haggling involved. But if they're showing up with like high-quality Nintendo 64 games because the competition was so high with different stores, we would fudge the numbers a little bit to make sure they were happy and they got their game, because there's always a chance that maybe next time when a new game comes out, oh, they found a bunch of Super Nintendo games. Well, I know where I'm going to take them because they made sure I got my new game. Now, not every time you're going to come out to $60 or something with games, but if you come out to like 53 and they're like Mario Kart right on the N64, you got Super Mario 64 in there, you got Star Fox, you see it starting to add up, you go, well, I could use these for the glass, and who knows, maybe somebody buys a Nintendo 64 with these, and then we're off and running because you're making decent money on it. That's kind of where it comes in for GameStop. There has to be some flexibility for their trade-ins there at the counter. And then, of course, there's trust involved with the employee actually being able to test, clean, and then sell these things properly at a good price. Prices fluctuate a lot with retro games, so GameStop would have to be on the ball with that as well. But GameStop Retro has me intrigued right now because that's what I think would work for them. It would get foot traffic in the door, and most of the people looking for retro games are going to convert into just straight up sales, and the retro games for being used stuff tends to give good money. So if they can figure out a formula to make that work, I think they have at least a way to, I'm going to say, stay above water for the time being, but they would have to install this quickly and figure out how to make all of it work through the chain of command with trade-ins and all of that. But if you're in the area there, they say Tulsa, let me know if you've seen this GameStop Retro or if you have any experience with it. I'm curious. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you next time.